emergency works. In Norfolk, an accident closed all lanes on the A11 northbound between the A1065 and A134. In Kent, a broken-down vehicle on the A20 eastbound has closed one lane. In Devon, a broken vehicle on the A38 eastbound has shut one lane. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast is carrying out major engineering work between Milton Keynes Central and Rugby. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
You that every one of those tickets will be sold. Guaranteed.
I guess they
because
will.
There'll be corporate ticket, you know, that's the thing. So there'll be corporate organisations that buy the tickets en masse. Is that the ticket price from FIFA for the game, or is that the uptick?
No, that's the legit price.
Yeah,
that's before the scalping happens, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the cheapest tickets for the final in the USA now cost more than £3,000.
But then if you look at Wimbledon, how much Wimbledon is for a final, it's just absolutely extreme. And, you know, so you are completely knocking out the mainstream fan and just you've got the elite.
I mean, it's a bit of a contrast to Qatar, where the prices weren't that high. Obviously, a bit tricky to, you know, not cheap to get there, but not cheap to get to the States either. But obviously, for Qatar, it was about putting itself on the world sporting map and using its diplomacy, whereas in the States, it's about making the dollar.
Well, I can also just say that they've got the Pride match that's going to be played at the World Cup. It's in Seattle, and it's against it's Iran versus Egypt.
So both of them have asked for it not to be the Pride match.
Both of them have asked not to be. But the only other teams, the only other game in that group that they could use as the Pride match is the USA versus Australia, and they can't because that's also their dedicated anti-slavery match. Yeah, so it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Are any of them themed around
They swap them round.
Well, still, that doesn't work, does it? Because of the other two nations.
Yeah, I think that's worse.
Like Iran, I don't know, they're still a bit slavey, aren't they?
Can't they just play football?
Modern slavery is an issue across the world.
Yeah. But I just, I don't know, it just cracks me up. Like, why? So we've got. Why are we doing any of this?
It should just be...
But also then stop, if you care so much about these issues, stop giving World Cups. Like in 2036, it's in Saudi Arabia, which does have modern slavery and kills gay people.
GB News, the People's Channel.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question. That's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and want to have an open discussion.
My name's Patrick Christie's. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
It's 9:30 on Monday, the 29th of December, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Well, should he stay or should he go? The Prime Minister is facing a growing political storm after welcoming an Egyptian-British activist to the UK who's been accused of posting anti-Semitic and racist comments online. Overnight, Alaa Abdel Fattah issued an apology, but the Tories and Reform told GB News he should still be deported.
Man is a scumbag. He has no place in the UK, and if I was Home Secretary, I would strip him of his British citizenship and deport him.
They're prioritising either sort of political virtue signalling, as in this case, or just speeding up applications to clear the backlog, rather than putting the British people first.
We have made a lot of progress on ending that war, which is really certainly the most deadly war since World War II.
Well, there's been some progress, but as yet no breakthrough, because after 2 hours of peace talks, Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky say they're close to agreeing a peace plan for Ukraine, but thorny questions over territory remain.
Well, first it was pubs, now hair salons. Labour MPs are getting the chop from barbers over what they call the government's great business rates betrayal. We'll be speaking to the Shadow Foreign Secretary's hairdresser for her thoughts.
Seems to spin ever faster. Our journey may pause to quieten our minds.
Now, the King used his Christmas address to urge people to adopt a digital detox. Now, this comes as new polling shows strong backing for social media to be banned for under 16s. Well, actress and indeed royal family member Sophie Windsor says the government needs to act now, and she'll be joining us shortly.
And pothole compensation claims rocketed by 90% in just 3 years, but only a quarter result in a payout from local councils. Mr. Pothole will be joining us live from one particularly dodgy street. He is furious. Well, this story has progressed overnight, Charlie. This Egyptian activist has now apologised for the words that he spoke on Twitter, but some of the things he said are pretty difficult to retract from, calling for the killing of all British police officers, for example.
Yeah, and I think it's one thing to say they were the statements of a young man's anger. It's a key part of his unequivocal apology, as he puts it. But he's 44 years old, and some of these posts are from just over a decade ago. By the time you're in your 30s, I really think you should know better than to say the remarkably large amount of hate and frankly, drivel that he's posted online. And the real question now, Miriam, I think, is how did he get his citizenship? That legal loophole that we'll be coming to very shortly. The detail there is astonishing, and it's a difficult time for the Prime Minister to be in charge, a human rights lawyer dealing with yet another example of what most people in the British public, I think, will see as bonkers human rights laws.
But what I want to know is, why did the establishment, both the Conservatives and the Labour Party, make such a big fuss about him? They really all wanted to get him over here when he was arrested and imprisoned in Egypt. And you could argue that some would see him as a freedom fighter who's standing up against authoritarian regimes in Egypt during the Arab Spring. But he also had some fairly extreme views at the time, which make you question why were the British establishment so keen to get him over here in the first place. I think there's a lot of questions to answer.
Yep, there are lots of difficult and nefarious activists railing against nasty regimes all over the world. But why are we battling so hard to bring them to Britain? Generally speaking, activists are pretty difficult people. We've got quite enough of them here in Britain as it is, perhaps. I think it's a mystery, as some of the newspapers are putting it, as to why the state, under different administrations, was battling so much. Perhaps some of that mystery will be answered soon.
But it does make you think about how all these different stories, from the small boats to this story to the anti-Semitism story that we're going to be covering today, are all linked by this obsession with human rights law that makes it so difficult to prosecute people who need prosecuting.
Absolutely. Right, well, it's 33 minutes past 9, and Sir Keir Starmer, as you've been hearing, is under mounting pressure to revoke the British citizenship of this alleged extremist.
Well, Allah Abdel Fattah, who has called for Zionists to be killed, was welcomed to the UK by the Prime Minister over the weekend.
Well, the Egyptian activist was jailed by Cairo for 6 years in September 2019, and he was granted British citizenship in 2021 through his mother, who was born here.
Well, Al Fattah has now released a statement saying he apologises unequivocally for the historic tweets, but claimed that some of the posts have been completely twisted out of their meaning.
Well, joining us now is the journalist and broadcaster David Shipley. Good morning to you, David. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Now, it's been revealed overnight that Al Fattah was able to acquire his citizenship in 2021 because the good character test was removed after an ECHR challenge in 2019. What can you tell us about that legal update?
That's right. So prior to then, if you acquired your citizenship via ancestry, you still had to meet the good character test, which has lots of requirements. For example, if you're an extremist, you shouldn't be given British citizenship. This seems fairly normal. And then in the latter part of last decade, there were a number of challenges to this. I think the primary one was led by a foreign murderer who felt that he should still be able to claim British citizenship, and that his murder conviction shouldn't prevent that. And the Home Office at the time didn't even really try to fight this. It just seems to have accepted it. There was no effort to change the law under the Tories to bring in new legislation to say, actually, we do want to have a good character test for people who are going to make citizens, which is a very normal thing that most sensible countries have. That disappeared, and so Al Fatah was able to acquire citizenship because his mother was born here, I believe, while his grandmother was studying for a PhD in the middle part of the last century. So it's very tenuous links. He's never really resided here. But because of this rule change, apparently he was just administratively allowed to apply for citizenship. The one question which does have to be answered, though, is normally that process would also require biometrics to be taken and so on. At the time Al Fatah was granted citizenship, he was actually in an Egyptian prison, so obviously wasn't able to come to the UK to provide biometrics or indeed attend the British consulate in Egypt. So it would be interesting to see who approved that change to the normal process and whether that went to ministerial level or not.
Now, of course, this will add to calls for the UK to leave the ECHR. That was the process by which the original criminal that you mentioned managed to gain citizenship. But as I understand it, the change, the allowance of someone to claim citizenship through their maternal rights, has actually been put into primary legislation now. So even if we left the ECHR, we'd still have to change that legislation. Do you think that's something that the government will look at?
Yes, so there was a change made to legislation. I think it was a piece of secondary legislation, actually, by the Home Office in 2018. They need to change it. I mean, this is very clearly, we've built ourselves this cage of rules and laws which damage the country. And that's the problem. And we treat these rules and laws as if they're part of the geography. You know, when the Home Office was told, well, the ECHR says you have to scrap the good character requirement, they could have done two things. They could have either collapsed as they did and just said, OK, fine, we won't ask that anymore. Or they could have said, right, we need new legislation, because Parliament is supreme, and Parliament could quite easily have legislated to say, actually, we are going to retain this. We're going to have a carve out from the ECHR on this. Perfectly reasonable. Lots of countries would do that. So I think the problem is that we've forgotten that we can actually exercise power. We have a political class who are just afraid of their own shadow, afraid of the law. And I think in many cases, deeply incurious. It's very clear that no one's really bothered to do any due diligence on Al Fatah before blithely deciding to support him.
Now, David, we've heard obviously so much reaction from opposition parties calling for him to be deported, to have his citizenship revoked. But there has been, by contrast, a rather more limited bit of engagement from Labour MPs, and obviously very little from the government as well. This is a political crisis for the Prime Minister, having said that the return of Al Fatah was a top priority for his government. What are the routes out of this for the Prime Minister? What can he do to show that he has a solution that will satisfy a lot of the anger that's been raised about this man?
Well, I think it's interesting. We are seeing some reports now that Labour MPs are starting to brief anonymously that they are also in favour of denaturalising and deporting Al Fatah.
Some publicly as well. I mean, just a handful, but as you said, most of it coming from anonymous briefing. But some publicly have bravely spoken out about this.
And I think that's huge. It shows there's actually a cross-party recognition that we don't want to live with people like this in our country. And I think that's a huge change in how we're thinking about citizenship, which is actually very encouraging, that we're realising that we don't just have to treat everyone who has a British passport as equivalently British. And if people come here and we grant them that paperwork, actually, if they're not conducive to our public good, if they're not the sort of people we want to share a country with, we can and should remove them.
So are you suggesting that we should discriminate between people who all have British passports? That seems to me quite difficult and possibly throws up questions about British values and the kind of heritage that we have about treating people equally.
Well, I think we already have legal precedent for this, right? The Home Secretary already has the right to remove citizenship from people. We saw this in the
if they have dual citizenship.
Or if they have the right to claim a citizenship elsewhere, which was the case in the Shamima Begum case. So they don't actually have to hold a passport, they just have to notionally be able to attain another citizenship. That was established very strongly in the case of Shamima Begum. So that power exists, and the Home Secretary could, if she so wished, remove citizenship from Al Fatah on the same basis. And I think, yes, I do think that power should be used more widely when people are clearly not conducive to the public good.
OK, journalist and broadcaster David Shipley, thank you very much for your time this morning. We should note that your black eyes from a rugby injury, we're being told by our producers. You haven't been scrapping with human rights lawyers overnight. Well, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Well, we need to tell you that a government spokesperson said Mr Al Fatah is a British citizen. It has been a long-standing priority under successive governments to work for his release from detention and to see him reunited with his family in the UK.
Right, it's time now for the Great British Giveaway, and it's your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date.
This Christmas, we're giving you the chance to win our biggest cash prize of the year.
An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to make your new year the best yet.
And we've come to the fabulously festive Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland to celebrate.
Imagine what next year could look like for you with a whopping £85,000 in the bank.
You could find yourself on the adventure of a lifetime or just safe in the knowledge that next year is on us. £85,000 of tax-free cash really could be yours. Go on, give it a go, and Merry Christmas!
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, still ahead, hairdressers are following pub landlords in banning Labour MPs in a backlash against high taxes. We'll be speaking to one shortly.
Up next, scroll no more. Do you support a ban on social media for under 16s? That's what apparently the majority of voters think, according to latest polling. But first, let's get a look at some of the top European holiday destinations for their weather forecast.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Are you after some sunshine this Christmas period? There is some on offer, particularly if you're going to the Canaries. Plenty of sunshine here, but Madeira seeing outbreaks of rain for Tuesday and brighter skies for Spain and Portugal. Sunny spells here, 1 or 2 showers, but more settled across into Italy, parts of Greece where we'll see showers, some longer spells of rain at times, but particularly mild for the time of year, 15, 16 Celsius. Turning cooler here over the next few days, but increasing amounts of sunshine too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
I think it's just good, honest, humble food. And yeah, as people get away from the ultra-processed stuff and get back to their roots, and what's better than a good jacket potato?
Do you know what? Sales of jacket spuds have gone through the roof. The big potatoes at Waitrose. There's been a 178% increase in people looking at recipes. And I just think it's wholesome, it's affordable, it's comfortable, you know, it makes you feel good, it's back to basics. That, I think, at the moment, sums up the nation.
I think very much it being affordable as well. With the climate we're living in at the moment, it definitely helps knowing, you know, you're putting food on the table for a reasonable price, and people appreciate that. And it's good, honest food. You can feed your kids, and kids are seeing it on social media, and they're getting excited about it as well. So they're not like, you know, obviously everyone sees all the big brands, and now there's all these, you know, jacket potato people out there, and we're giving them something that's healthy, and they want to eat it. And I think the parents appreciate that.
And Ben, I've seen your videos. They queue around the block to get to you. If people are in the mood to cook a potato tonight, of course, we don't want to affect your sales. What is your sort of top of the pops spud recipe? Give it to us.
Oh, it's all about variety. It's picking the right potato is really important. Get a nice melody or a cara or culture or something like that. Nice and big. In the oven, if you can. Hour and 20. Get a nice crispy skin on there. Loads of butter. loads of cheese, and a nice curry on top or something. That's my go-to.
Now that was a final little curveball there you threw at the last minute there, Ben.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 9:46 and you're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, recent polling by The Mirror has revealed that 64% of voters support implementing an Australia-style ban on social media for children under 16.
But despite this public support, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, he's voiced his opposition to such a ban, suggesting that it could restrict freedoms and overstep government boundaries.
Well, let's bring in the actress and campaigner Sophie Windsor. Sophie, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a topic close to both of our hearts. What's your view on banning social media for under 16s?
Well, I personally, Miriam, you and I have discussed this for over 3 years now. I don't think there's any upside. I don't think social media is a lovely, cuddly, fuzzy, connecting force. I think it's isolating. I think it makes children lonely. It makes them anxious. They don't sleep as well. They're up all night. It's terribly addictive. I can't see a single upside. So I don't think it has to impact free speech. There's ways of doing that where you simply put it on the tech companies to make sure children aren't on it. It's very plain to do, apparently. And you just fine them massive amounts of money if they overstep the mark. It's what Australia is doing. They've already reported wonderful effects in all the children, even though there were a few who complained at the beginning. Apparently they're now seeming like children, much happier, much freer. They're reading more, they're talking to their friends more. We've got sort of contacts in Australia in this fight, and they've said it's just heaven. So I don't see any upside of children being glued to phones for their entire childhoods.
Sophie, one of the reasons why you might want this ban to come in is because you think parents need more help in fighting against sort of the technology companies pushing social media, because you yourself admitted over the weekend that you had given your 12-year-old daughter a smartphone because the pressure to join in with the crowd, as it were, was just so strong. Is it the case that you think that perhaps if the state introduced this legislation, parents wouldn't be under such pressure?
Yeah, I think it would be a godsend for parents and children and teachers, because children at that age particularly are herd animals and they have a biological need to fit in with their peers. And if every single person in your class is on a smartphone and on, Snapchat, and you don't know what they're talking about the next morning, it's too lonely for parents, even like me, who know all the downsides, to keep saying no. It's too much of a battle. My daughter doesn't have any social media and she's, it's heavily restricted. And I'm hoping it's so boring she loses interest in it. But she just, fair enough, she was very tired of being the only one all the time. It became too much a part of her identity. It was too stressful. So I caved in.
Sophie, I completely am in the same place as you, and I think this is why it's been called a collective action problem by psychologists like Jonathan Haidt. One parent trying to act alone can actually do nothing about this. We need everybody to act together, and that's why legislation is important. But do you think that legislation can be effective? You said there are ways of doing this without restricting free speech, but there are some reports from Australia saying that teenagers are getting around these issues, that other platforms will spring up. Do you think it's realistic to keep kids, or most kids, off social media before the age of 16?
Well, I think one of John Nash's amendments, which is going to be put to the House in mid-January is to make the age of accessing VPNs to 18, so children actually really wouldn't be able to get around it. And I think if you make it the norm for kids not to have social media, of course children are going to get around things. Children find ways to smoke, they find ways to drink, they find ways to do all sorts of things they shouldn't be. But if it's the massive norm that children aren't on this stuff, that can only be a good thing.
Sophie, obviously, over Christmas Day, we heard from King Charles talking about how our world seems to spin ever faster, the worrying digital overload forming a central piece of his address to the nation. Have you had a chance to speak to the King about the digital detox and the pressures that you think people are under with social media and technology?
I have actually. He's very receptive and very kind to what I'm trying to do, and I think he's fully on board. I mustn't say that too strongly about a sort of, political banning social media. It's not that. It's just, he's a big reader. He's a thoughtful man. He takes time about things. And I think I've tried to explain that children being on social media all the time is bringing out the worst sides of them, like it does with adults, rather than the best sides. It's a sort of angry marketplace, and I think it's changing people's behavior in ways that neuroscientists will write about in sort of 10, 20 years. I think it's making people so impatient and quick to anger and narcissistic, and we don't want to be that kind of genus. And when you stop the noise, goodness me, it's hard because everything is going onto our phones. But when you do stop it, you just feel your whole self calm down. I did an event in Parliament about a month ago, and one of the doctors, Rangan Chatterjee, said there's biological evidence that being on phones enervates your entire system, especially that with children. Blood pressure, heart rate, everything gets inflamed. So I don't really understand why anyone ever thought this was a good idea for children. And I think until products are proven safe and beneficial, children shouldn't have them. I don't know why the argument is the wrong way around at the moment, where we're letting children run loose on the internet, seeing how disastrous it is, and then going, oh gosh, maybe we should do something. And it's taking so long.
Sophie, reading some of our audience writing into us, gbnews.com/your say on this, there is quite a lot of opposition to what you're saying from the audience. One commentator saying parents, again, looking to pass the responsibility onto the state. They say it's a propaganda campaign so the state can take more control of the people. And others saying that parents need to take more responsibility for their children. And social media is a great way to get the truth out, and more limits on it will be a hindrance. What do you make of those arguments?
I'm entirely with your commenters saying free speech is essential, especially in this time where a lot of us feel we're being shut down. I'm 100% with that. I can promise your listeners and your viewers there are ways of doing this which simply protect children. I promise. Just ask John Nash, Miriam, Diana Barron, all the mega fighters in this case know the situation and how to do this. I don't fully know if that's happening in Australia. I thought it was going very well. I completely agree. We cannot have any more impositions on our freedom of speech. It's terrifying. I just think children are different to adults. Adults should be able to say whatever they like, express whatever they like, but it's not very healthy for children. It's terribly addictive. Vulnerable children are getting exposed to all sorts of things. And when viewers say parents should take control, first of all, it's so difficult. If you have an 11, 12 or 13-year-old and they're a complete social leper, I promise you it's utterly brutal.
Sophie, I'm so sorry. We are going to have to leave it there. We'd love to have you back and discuss this more, but really appreciate you joining us this morning. Thank you so much. Sophie Windsor there.
Yes, thank you. Very quickly, Joanna from Somerset, she says Starmer is against a social media ban for under-16s because he doesn't want to lose another voter group. That's a curious argument. Here's the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Some thick fog in places this morning, a lot of cloud around and on the chilly side, and it remains chilly through the week ahead. So looking at the picture, we can see a lot of cloud across the UK, but there are some breaks in the cloud and we've seen a frost in places, some thick fog, particularly through the central belt, so take care if travelling. This will slowly lift through the day, but may linger for 1 or 2, but otherwise a lot of cloud around, a few showers down the east coast of Scotland and England, and temperatures overall still rather chilly, between 4 and 7 Celsius for most of us, perhaps 8 or 9 around some coastal stretches. Again, the best of any sunnier breaks most likely in the west. Through the evening time, if we look at the details, we can see a few showers perhaps across eastern Scotland, but otherwise generally dry with some clear spells. The wind's coming in from the north, so quite a chilly evening to come. Rather cloudy skies across into northern England, the risk of a few showers down the east coast there. Northern Ireland dry and turning quite chilly as a frost begins to form through the evening time, and a lot of cloud across the rest of England and Wales. Again, western fringes of Wales down into the West Country turning quite chilly where we see any clear spells. Overnight, temperatures dropping well below freezing across Scotland, some mist and fog patches forming here. Elsewhere, variable cloud amounts. Where we do see the clear skies, we'll see some fog patches, some frost as well. Temperatures, towns and cities under the cloud holding up between 4 and 5 Celsius, but where we see any breaks, could be down to -2 or -3. Again, the Glens of Scotland down to -5 to -7 degrees. So chilly start to Tuesday, fog patches in places, and then I'm hopeful through the day there'll be more in the way of sunny spells across the country. There'll still be some showers around, largely around the coasts, most places avoiding these and staying dry, and a little bit breezy in the east and the south as well. And temperatures again lifting to around 5 or 7 Celsius by the afternoon. See you soon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A83 has restrictions in both directions at Loughnell Street in Loch Gilphead due to emergency roadworks. Additionally, on the M4 eastbound between junction 38 Margam and junction 37 Pyle, an incident has led to lane closures, impacting traffic flow. In Norfolk, a collision on the A11 northbound between the A1065 and A134 near Thetford is causing significant disruptions, with all lanes closed. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast is conducting major engineering work between Milton Keynes Central and Northampton and Rugby, while cross-country is affected in the Cambridge area. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We want to make the new year your best year yet, with a chance to win our greatest cash prize to date. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. Treat the family to that bucket list holiday you've always fancied. Get your dream car you've always wanted. Or just relax, safe in the knowledge that the coming year is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 a.m. on Monday, the 29th of December. Live across the United Kingdom, this is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Well, should he stay or should he go? The Prime Minister is facing a growing political storm after welcoming an Egyptian-British activist to the UK who's accused of posting anti-Semitic and racist comments online. Well, overnight, Alaa Abdel Fattah issued an apology, but the Tories and Reform say he should be deported.
This man is a scumbag. He has no place in the UK, and if I was Home Secretary, I would strip him of his British citizenship and deport him.
They're prioritising either sort of political virtue signalling, as in this case, or just speeding up applications to clear the backlog, rather than putting the British people first.
We have made a lot of progress on ending that war, which is really certainly the most deadly war since World War II.
Well, Trump says there's been progress, but as yet no breakthrough. Because after 2 hours of peace talks, Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky say they're close to agreeing a peace plan for Ukraine, but those thorny questions over territory concessions, they remain.
Well, first it was pubs, now hair salons. Labour MPs get the chop from barbers over what they call the government's great business rates betrayal. And we'll be speaking to the Shadow Foreign Secretary's hairdresser for her thoughts soon.
And pothole compensation claims they've rocketed by 90% in just 3 years. But only a quarter result in a payout from local councils. Well, we're joined soon by Mr. Pothole, who is attending a particularly dodgy street, and he is furious.
Charlie, it's really interesting to speak to Sophie Windsor just now about the social media ban, potential social media ban, which of course has been implemented in Australia. I think the difficulty for parents is that on the one hand, you see the damage that this is doing to children, not just the time they spend online, but also the content that they're being fed through it. But Sophie's absolutely right. If you're the only child in the class or even in the school that doesn't have access to this, you have a completely miserable life. So what are parents supposed to do?
Yeah, a lot of people saying, give more parental responsibility to tackle this problem. I think a lot of parents got so much on their plate. How can they fight against big tech? But the question for me, what it comes down to is, first I want to, prioritise parents before I prioritise the government wherever possible. But also, what would be the unintended consequences of this? What would happen to those pupils and those under 16s who do get around the ban?
I think we are looking at it the wrong way, though, and the people who say this is a parent's responsibility, what they're actually saying is that parents should be monitoring and controlling their children all the time. Now, that is terrible parenting. Of course you should be doing that when your child is 2, but not when they're 12. The only way children grow up, the only way they become adults, learn to take risks, is if they do have independence, if they do have time away from their parents when their parents don't know what they're doing. The problem is the social media, the things that they are doing are just so harmful that parents are obviously very concerned. It's a lot worse than climbing a tree and falling out and breaking your leg.
Thing is, Miriam, we know what happened last time you tried this with the Online Safety Act. Suddenly everything was being censored online. So there we go. Right, well, we'd love to know what you think.
Post talk over me and give me no time.
Send your views, post your comments. gbnews.com/your say. Kate says it's not true. Let's hear what Aaron Armstrong has to say about the news, not our views.
Thank you very much indeed. Charlie, good afternoon to you. It is 3 minutes past 10 here in the GB Newsroom. Let's get you up to date with our top story. And it is that British Egyptian campaigner Abdel Fattah has apologised after social media messages emerged that appear to show him endorsing the killing of Zionists and police. It's led to growing calls for him to be deported just days after arriving in the UK following his release from an Egyptian jail, which was welcomed by the Prime Minister. Now, the Egyptian dissident says his posts have been twisted out of their meaning. And Number 10 says the Prime Minister was unaware of Mr Fattah's past comments. But the Conservatives and Reform UK say the Home Secretary should look at whether Mr Al Fattah's British citizenship could be revoked, including the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp.
This man is a scumbag. He has no place in the UK, and if I was Home Secretary, I would strip him of his British citizenship.
Now, Donald Trump says a lot of progress has been made after a meeting with President Zelensky to discuss a deal to end the war with Russia. Speaking at a news conference in Florida, the leaders accepted significant challenges remain. They were discussing an updated version of the US-brokered 20-point peace plan, which Moscow has yet to support. Mr Trump says the issue of territory and concessions in the Donbass remains unresolved, but they say they have reached agreement on security guarantees for Ukraine.
And our meeting was excellent. We covered, somebody would say 95%, I don't know what percent, but we have made a lot of progress on ending that war, which is really certainly the most deadly war since World War II.
A man's been shot dead by police in Norfolk after a two-car crash between two cars near Thetford. Officers were called to a collision between the cars at around 8:30 last night when a man believed to be the driver of one of the vehicles left the scene holding what was described as a handgun. Police say he was subsequently shot by police a short distance away. Now, new NHS figures show the wait for a GP appointment have soared under Labour, with more than 300,000 more people waiting over a month to be seen in autumn. A total of 7.6 million patients faced a delay of more than 4 weeks across September, October and November. That's up 4.2% on the same months in 2024. And the Lib Dems, who analysed the NHS data, say the figures represent a damning failure by the government to improve access. China says it's begun large-scale military operations around Taiwan. The Taiwanese government's deployed what it has described as appropriate forces in response and has called on Beijing to halt their activities. China, which claims the self-ruled island as its own territory, sanctioned a number of US arms firms last week after they sold billions of dollars worth of arms to Taiwan. Finally, air passengers are being warned to brace themselves for flight price hikes as regional airports across the UK face unprecedented rises in property tax next year. And London and Heathrow and Gatwick, well, they'll also be hit with increases in their business rates, but the figures show the most extreme cases will be found outside London. New government data shows those steep rises, with regional airports facing the hit in business rate increases. It piles pressure on operators, raises fears of those ticket prices going higher for passengers in the new year. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at 10:30.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Now, it's 7 minutes past 10 and hairdressers are following in the footsteps of pubs by banning Labour MPs over what they are describing as the government's business rates betrayal.
Well, more than 1,000 boozers have already barred parties' politicians from their premises in a growing backlash against Rachel Reeves's budget.
Well, let's speak now to salon director Kate Burrell from Cabello Hair and Beauty in Essex. Kat, good morning to you. Thanks very much for joining us on Britain's Newsroom. Why are you part of this campaign, I believe, to ban Labour MPs?
To be honest, we're getting absolutely clobbered this end. National insurance, previous years, 835, this year, 1639. It varies, but, you know, between £5,000–6,000 a month additional. The VAT on our industry, you know, we don't buy a lot of product, it's all in our skills. So, you know, the VAT is a horrendous expense per month. We've got statutory sick pay for 1 day. So last year I had 43 days of sickness. That would have been £3,500 a year. And, you know, my prices I put into a spreadsheet with all our expenses, and they have to be increased every time an expense goes in there. And then, you know, people are just going to stop coming. And we're the highest prices in the town at the moment because of our expenses are reflected in that. I've still got a bounce back loan that I'm paying off. I need new furniture. We've been here 11 years. That all needs updating. National minimum wage is going up. That means their prices will be going up again. And the price is going up. I need more aggressive paid for marketing strategies. I can't rely on a Facebook reach of 1% with free advertising. I need to do team incentives. I need to keep my staff. A lot of hairdressers are going off on their own, opening salons in that back gardens. And, you know, I don't blame them because they'll get all the money. They haven't got to pay VAT and all of that lot to go with it. And I need to keep those people. I need to keep them happy. I mean, Christmas parties, that's no. I managed to take them out for a curry. Thanks, girls. But yeah, you know, we just work as a team. We're an eco brand as well, so trying to follow that eco ethos is just incredibly hard when you've just got to keep cutting costs everywhere to try and keep our prices competitive.
Now, Kat,
just
you mentioned... Sorry, you mentioned that some of your colleagues are starting their own businesses in a shed in the back garden. Now, one thing that does enable them to do is to not pay business rates. Of course, that was the subject of a lot of controversy after the budget. Initially, Rachel Reeves said this was a budget for small business, but it soon emerged that the revaluation of business rates was going to hit small businesses really, really hard. Can you explain the impact that that's had on hairdressers?
I mean, under the Conservatives, we used to have zero rates. So for many years, you know, we didn't have to pay rates, thank you. But yes, we're now into, again, it's another £1,000, you know, it just seems to get clobbered everywhere you turn. But what do you do? And, you know, like I say, it's hard to then keep the skills and keep my team together and keep everybody happy. And, you know, if they're just going to go and do that or go to people's houses, and there's many other costs that they haven't got to pay that I have.
Sure. Kat, you say that you had those very low rates, or those 0% rates under the Conservatives. I believe that you are the hairdresser for the shadow Foreign Secretary, Priti Patel, so you've certainly got her ear. By banning Labour MPs, do you feel as though you put a risk of distancing salons and barbers away from the government and indeed away from MPs? And here at GB News, the Free Speech channel, we really, we believe in engaging with all perspectives, and we think that
that's why
if you push people away, you might lose them.
Yes, exactly. I've not put up the sign. I try and keep politics out of the salon. It was the same with COVID. I don't want to talk about vaccine and anti-vaccine in the salon. I don't want to put people off. I haven't put a poster up for that reason. But to be honest, our Labour MP lives in Luton, which is, I don't know, 50 miles away. So it'd be absolutely pointless anyway. But yeah, I don't want to put the Labour voters off, and even doing this interview, is it risky? But I need to try and speak to Rachel and Keir somehow. So please stop clobbering us, help us, because all you're going to do is you're going to have another empty shop on our high street, and we've got enough of those. And then you've got nothing.
I think, Kat, one of the problems that people are complaining about is not just the level of tax that we're paying. It's not just small businesses, of course. Taxes have gone up across the board. But it's what that money is spent on. And increasingly, people don't think that their taxes are well spent. Do you think that makes a difference in terms of small businesses' attitude to tax rates, whether or not they think the money is being fairly spent?
Well, you know, I'm not holding the purse strings, but, you know, there's a lot of things that need doing in the town, but I don't see anything. I have to pay for all my own rubbish. You know what? I don't really know what I'm getting out of my expenditure, to be honest. I mean, I haven't got kids, so I'm not interested in all the education, etc. Although, you know, I have to worry about what's happening with our new people coming in. Where are they coming from? If it gets to the point where I can't have assistants and train those, where are they all going to work? They're going to come straight out of college and have never worked in a salon because we can't afford to have them.
Kat, Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We do wish you all the best with your business, and Priti Patel does have great hair, so well done.
Well, if you can call me a stylist, she has 2 millimetres cut off every 6 months, so I keep trying to give
we
her
know
a
all the
shot,
secrets
but
now.
It's not working. Come on, Priti, let me chop it off.
We'll pass on the message. Thank you so much, Kat, for joining us.
I'm sure she's probably watching right now, actually. A direct appeal to Labour MPs, to the government and to Priti Patel. Kat, thank you so much for your time. Right, well, it's 14 minutes past 10, and on that story, we do have a response from a Labour source who said that the government is backing high street businesses across the country, including hairdressers and salons. That's why the Chancellor announced a support package worth £4.3 billion at the budget last month.
Of course, Charlie, there is a hairdresser in Parliament where most MPs do get their hair done, so it's possible that the boycott won't have any impact, or perhaps the hairdresser in Parliament will just get even more business.
Just you wait until that hairdresser in Parliament puts up a sign as well. Then
That could be very controversial. Well, moving on now, Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky have held major talks in Florida.
President Trump says that Ukraine is now much closer to an agreement, with results expected within weeks.
And our meeting was excellent. We covered, somebody would say 95%, I don't know what percent, but we have made a lot of progress on ending that war, which is really certainly the most deadly war since World War II.
Well, joining us now is former British Army spokesperson Major Mike Shearer. Mike, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. It does feel a little bit like deja vu. For the last year, we have had our hopes raised time and time again that peace was just around the corner. Do you think this time we are looking at real progress?
I'm sorry, my hopes have never been raised, and they're not raised now. No matter what Trump and Zelensky put forward, I give you my professional opinion. There is no way that Putin is going to join in with it. Look, what we have here is a deal maker versus a troublemaker, and it's much easier to make trouble. Putin is very clear about what he wants. He wants the complete subjugation of Ukraine. He wants all the territory. He doesn't want a little slice of it. And I'm afraid everyone's going to be disappointed with this.
Well, perhaps Vladimir Putin won't be disappointed with this, because, I mean, Volodymyr Zelensky looked absolutely exhausted when he arrived at Mar-a-Lago yesterday. As he arrived to be greeted by Donald Trump, there was a sense, perhaps, of an aura of resignation on his face as the US president addressed reporters. Zelensky standing there, looking, as I say, almost resigned to the fate that is facing him.
Well, look, ceding territory should be an absolute no-no. And first of all, he doesn't have the mandate to give territory to a foreign aggressor. It's against their constitution. Now, there may be a midway house with this. You know, de facto, Russia are occupying part of the Donbass. And so there could be a written agreement if the Constitution allows it, but it'll probably need a vote, a referendum, to say that we hold our lines as they are and put in a demilitarized zone. But that is not what Russia will accept. Look, Russia presents this case that it's nervous against NATO and various other neighbors. Look, Russia has never been invaded since the Nazis were there in 1941. Before that, it was Napoleon in the 19th century. And before that, it was the Mongols in the 1230s. They just need, look, Russia just need to be put back in their box.
But Mike, that's very easy to say, but unless it's backed up with actual military action, these are just words. And hasn't this been the problem all along, that the Europeans have talked the good talk, they've compared the situations to the moral position of the Second World War, but they've not been willing to back it up with troops on the ground. So we can say what we like, but Putin knows we're not serious.
You are right. And we have been way too soft and reserved about getting involved. You know, these threats of nuclear strikes, etc., it's for the birds. There's not going to be a nuclear war. We need to present the alternative, which is a conventional force. And look, we have the equipment collectively. We should get involved. And actually, Donald Trump could help with that. Look,
sorry, we should get involved, as in you think that European forces, including the British Army, should be on the ground in Ukraine helping out. I mean, you say that we have the kit and equipment. The army is smaller than it ever has been since the Napoleonic era. You're speaking about the 19th century. We need to go back that far to find an army as tiny as the one we've got now. And, you know, saying, Major Mike Shearer, about concessions to territory as a total no-go zone. It's been the de facto position of the West for over a decade now, since Russia took over Crimea. We've been so angry about this stuff in diplomatic circles, as it were, for over a decade. But there's no division to deploy in the British Army. The West does not have the capability to meet the fighting talk you're putting forward.
Charlie, I said collectively. You are right, of course. The United Kingdom is in a woeful state. And our collective government since the end of the Cold War have been negligent. The trouble is the United Kingdom governments, collective, consecutive, I should say, they have always seen defence as a liability. It's not. It's an asset. It's what secures your freedoms. How much money do you want to spend on freedom? You know, we need to get serious, certainly in the United Kingdom. But collectively, let me call it NATO, Europe, NATO, there's no question that they can manage Russia, but it would be much better if we had our American cousins with us. You know, the fact that we reneged on the 1994 Budapest Security Agreement is shameful. Shame on the United States and shame on the United Kingdom. And of course, who was the other signatory to that? Russia. Well, no surprises there. Look, in the last 106 years, Russia have invaded 22 countries, some of them more than once and some of them more than twice. We need to waken up and get serious with it.
Indeed. Major Mike Shearer, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And Charlie, I was looking at the Budapest Memorandum this morning, 1994, when Ukraine agreed to give up their massive arsenal of nuclear weapons on condition that America and the West supported them in case of invasion. Of course, we didn't do that when Russia invaded the Crimea. So you do wonder if they will trust any security guarantees in future.
Yes, indeed. Well, coming up next on Britain's Newsroom, more than 7 million patients have waited over a month to see a GP. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. See you after the break.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
So this is a lovely story because it's about a chap who bought this DB5 and he bought it for 900 quid. This is an Aston Martin DB5.
It's a lovely car.
Bought it for 900 quid. And then for 50 years, pretty much didn't do very much. He moved to the Middle East, car left was on his driveway, things happened, the local kids jumped on it and various other things, and it just decayed. He has spent pretty much the big wodge of 400 grand having it done.
Do you have a picture of this car now?
Oh, I thought as I was waffling. Well, I can hold it up. But this is how it looks now. There we go. This is how it looked then and now. I don't know which.
So he spent 400 grand on this.
400 grand. He sent it back to Aston Martin.
Oh.
To where it was made, and the reason it's worth now about $1 million is because there were only 37, I think,
39
of them made, and so it's very rare. There we go. Well done, him.
Pretty penny on that. Good for him.
Yeah. Yes, and good for him.
He hasn't made it yet.
No, he hasn't made it. It's just worth. I know. He may.
I was reading a story about a man who'd spent £1 million on a DB5, and it's now worth 500,000.
Right,
they hit a peak a couple of years ago, but who knows? Who knows?
But don't you want to spend money on a car in order to use it, not to sell it?
Well,
I had a car like that. I drive it.
Of course. No, then that's what he's not selling it. He's worked hard. He said we've worked hard to get it
it's a work of art.
Reconditioned, and he loves it.
I wonder, does it have machine guns? things they're going to...
Oh, no, weirdly, it says no.
Or an ejector
No
seat.
ejector seat, exactly. Or any of those other things, yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good morning, it's 24 minutes past 10. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Right, so we're joined in the panel now by the former Reform UK spokesman Gawain Towler and the Labour councillor Stuart Fawcett, because we're going to go through the day's top stories. We're going to start with the front page of the Daily Mail, because Kemi Badenoch said, "I don't want people who hate our country coming here," referring to this case of the Egyptian dissident Gawain, who acquired citizenship in 2021. He's never been to Britain. Some people are saying he's been welcomed back. It's actually his first time coming here, in
That phrase does seem a bit welcome back to the bosom of his country he's never visited before.
It's a welcome.
And he is regularly slagged off.
Yes. I'm not sure about that term. At 25 minutes past 10. Apologies to anyone who's offended by that. But Gawain, many more people will be offended by this policy, though, won't they, of giving him his citizenship and bringing him over?
The question lies, I mean, his mother was born here, and therefore there's the possibility of him applying for citizenship many, many moons ago. And yet the application was only put through in 2021 under Conservatives, of course. And Kemi is screaming and shouting, as she often does, trying to ignore the shadows in her own closet, which are the shadows that actually get granted this chap. They granted this chap his citizenship. And what I think is very interesting is nobody seems to have checked his tweets. Nobody. Now, if you're an 8-year-old child, well, it's not supposed to be on Twitter, but if you're 8-year-old if you're an 8-year-old child and you say something rude, prevents down your throat. So the idea that we'd grant a citizenship to somebody who didn't get a human rights award in 2014 because of these tweets and his social media presence, didn't anybody at all in the Home Office?
Clearly not. They haven't. They just haven't done it.
Or they did and they ignored it.
But Stuart, isn't the scandal here that he wasn't checked, his social media posts weren't checked, because he took advantage of a legal loophole that meant that he didn't have to go through character investigations in order to get citizenship?
I think there's different. We need to separate the two subjects, which are both concurrently very important, which is the citizenship issue and his eligibility for that, but also the assessment of whether he is a threat to the UK's national security. And part of that assessment is people's social media, which is very telling on what people are saying. We do that, as you say, Gawain, if it was a referral to prevent, that would be the sort of things that are assessed. In this particular case, it's obviously a diplomatic channel that's going on concurrently as well in order to obtain his release.
Why do you think that's going on? Because it's a bit of a mystery, isn't it? Why was the British state doing everything it possibly could to bring this man to Britain? He didn't actually really apply for citizenship himself. It was pushed as an option by Conservative ministers to sort of embarrass Cairo and his family, to embarrass Cairo to take the steps even further. Do you have any understanding as to why that might be the case, Stuart?
I think it's interesting because historically the FCDO have not always prioritised the return of political prisoners from abroad, whether they're British citizens prior or post-application. So there's an interesting angle on this. I know the Foreign Secretary is currently campaigning for Jimmy Lai to be released. However, it's an interesting angle why this is. All I can really surmise is that there's been a large change in the political circumstances in Egypt since this chap's arrest, and that may have given rise to greater diplomatic channels with Egypt in order to obtain this outcome.
I mean, Gawain, this is really just chapter 75 in the long history of how the ECHR has ruined our ability to enforce our borders, isn't it?
Yes, up to a point. And I think the real problem is our own institutions, our own authorities. In answer to your point, why? This is somebody who is extremely well connected amongst the bien pensants. The mother was a professor of mathematics, father was a communist activist, had been imprisoned himself. They were writers. Her sister, her mother's sister, was a novelist. They had connections in the world with the Stephen Frys of this world, who were prepared to step up and shout and shout and shout. And we are governed by people who believe that international human rights law supersedes the interests and protections of our own citizens, and that's why it worked.
And that'll be the impression that a lot of people get from this case, Stuart, and in particular that in 2019 the rules were changed, that the good character assessment for being granted citizenship through the matrilineal route was changed because they removed that assessment because of a challenge by a convicted murderer who relied on Articles 8 and 14 of the ECHR. This puts additional pressure on our human rights lawyer Prime Minister to seriously amend or perhaps leave the ECHR, which he's not going to want to do.
I think that process is already ongoing, as we know that there's currently renegotiations happening with the ECHR, especially on Article 8. In particular, in order to address this very situation about people coming to the UK and their access to citizenship and access to the rights to asylum and immigration into our country. I think the fundamental question here is social media. Should it be used to assess whether people are a threat? Can we use that accurately to decide whether that is the case? Now, I've seen some of the social media posts in question. I think it's absolutely abhorrent that things that have been said. There's obviously a great deal of time that has passed between those things, and I recognise there's been a statement made today. But where does the priority lie? And this is a political call, isn't it, realistically, to say at what point do we prioritise our citizens? And I think if you ask the average member of the public, if you put these two pieces of information into their domain at the very same time, I wouldn't be confident they would say absolutely that should be granted. However, I recognise there's probably a larger diplomatic channel conversation going on here.
It's just that the state and the people are just, totally separate on this position.
I think that's the issue. Is there's a large perceived disconnect here, isn't there, between what people would like.
And it seems to be divided along left-right lines in terms of what tweets should be allowed and what tweets should be cracked down upon.
What I think is the reason why so much focus has come across this case is because half of the government celebrated it.
Yes, top priority.
If they hadn't made a big deal about it when he was released, I doubt the press would have noticed, I doubt anybody else would have noticed. But because the government, it just shows bad politics yet again from this Prime Minister.
Well, shall we move on to a more domestic story? Month-long GP waits are soaring under Labour. Now, one thing your government did promise to do when it came in was to cut NHS waiting lists. That doesn't seem to be happening.
I think in terms of NHS waiting lists being cut, there's been another 5 million appointments been made within the NHS. Look at these figures here that we've seen today for GPs. I think the first thing to be said is that GPs do an excellent job and they're an extremely efficient service. I think nearly 31 million appointments were made in November, and if that was roughly one per person, that's nearly half the population. So the GPs, who are often self-funded, their own organisations that work for the NHS, do an incredible job in seeing people. But I think it's about 1.7 million people who are in this category that you mentioned, whereas about 70% of all GP appointments people got within a week.
Gawain, just quickly on this, the NHS has been one of the areas that this government has sort of trumpeted very proudly about their successes. They'll be quite devastated that they've had one of the worst autumns on record in terms of waits of more than 4 weeks.
Oh, of course they will, but to be fair to them, and I hate doing this, of course, but to be fair to the government, they have been focusing on the long-term waits rather than the short-term waits, and to a certain extent they have succeeded there. However, we have had a flu. There's been sort of pushes for this, that and the other with more restrictions and so on and so forth. So I suspect what's underlying the release of some of these figures is an attempt to increase restrictions on our liberties. So I'd be careful what you wish for when you bang this drum too hardly.
Very fair. Put your tin hat on. Thank you very much. Thank you to both of you. We'll be back in an hour.
But first, let's get a 60-second news update with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Our headlines. The Prime Minister facing calls from MPs across the House to strip Alaa Abdel Fattah of his British citizenship after the emergence of historic posts endorsing violence against Jewish people and police. The Egyptian dissident has apologised, saying the comments were old and taken out of context, but Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says he should be deported.
This man is a scumbag. He has no place in the UK, and if I was Home Secretary, I would strip him of his British citizenship.
Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky say they're close to agreeing a peace plan for Ukraine, but thorny questions remain over territory that could be given up to Russia. The US president, though, said security guarantees for Ukraine are 95% agreed. New NHS figures show the wait for GP appointments have soared under Labour, with around 250,000 more people now waiting more than a month to be seen. The Liberal Democrats who analysed the data say the figures represent a damning failure by the government to improve access. And air passengers are being warned to brace for flight prices to jump as regional airports across the country face unprecedented rises in property tax next year. Bristol, Manchester and Birmingham amongst the worst hit, with their business rates set to quadruple in 2026. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at 11.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, coming up next, from Manchester to Bondi, there have been a string of attacks on Jews. Was 2025 the year of anti-Semitism? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Some thick fog in places this morning, a lot of cloud around and on the chilly side, and it remains chilly through the week ahead. So looking at the picture, we can see a lot of cloud across the UK, but there are some breaks in the cloud and we've seen a frost in places, some thick fog, particularly through the central belt, so take care if travelling. This will slowly lift through the day, but may linger for 1 or 2, but otherwise a lot of cloud around, a few showers down the east coast of Scotland and England, and temperatures overall still rather chilly, between 4 and 7 Celsius for most of us, perhaps 8 or 9 around some coastal stretches. Again, the best of any sunnier breaks most likely in the west. Through the evening time, if we look at the details, we can see a few showers perhaps across eastern Scotland, but otherwise generally dry with some clear spells. The wind's coming in from the north, so quite a chilly evening to come. Rather cloudy skies across into northern England, the risk of a few showers down the east coast there. Northern Ireland dry and turning quite chilly as a frost begins to form through the evening time, and a lot of cloud across the rest of England and Wales. Again, western fringes of Wales down into the West Country turning quite chilly where we see any clear spells. Overnight, temperatures dropping well below freezing across Scotland, some mist and fog patches forming here. Elsewhere, variable cloud amounts. Where we do see the clear skies, we'll see some fog patches, some frost as well. Temperatures, towns and cities under the cloud holding up between 4 and 5 Celsius, but where we see any breaks, could be down to -2 or -3. Again, the Glens of Scotland down to -5 to -7 degrees. So chilly start to Tuesday, fog patches in places, and then I'm hopeful through the day there'll be more in the way of sunny spells across the country. There'll still be some showers around, largely around the coasts, most places avoiding these and staying dry, and a little bit breezy in the east and the south as well. And temperatures again lifting to around 5 or 7 Celsius by the afternoon. See you soon.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A83 is restricted in both directions at Locknell Street, Loch Gilphead due to emergency roadworks. On the M4 eastbound between Junction 38 Margam and Junction 37 Pyle, an incident has closed lanes. In Norfolk, the A11 northbound has a collision between the A1065 and A134 Thetford West, closing all lanes. Normal traffic is expected to resume between 6 and 6:15 this evening. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast has engineering work between Milton Keynes Central and Northampton or Rugby. Additionally, cross-country services face significant work in the Cambridge area. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back, it's 10:37. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Charlie Peters, and Miriam Cates.
Now, was 2025 the year of anti-Semitism? In May, 2 Israeli embassy staffers in Washington, D.C. were shot to death.
And then a month later in Colorado, a man tossed a Molotov cocktail at a gathering in support of Israeli hostages, and an 82-year-old woman died.
And in Manchester on Yom Kippur, 2 were killed in the attack at the Heaton Park synagogue.
And then a couple of weeks ago, of course, there was the worst mass murder of Jews in Australian history.
Well, joining us now to discuss this is the chief politics writer at Spiked, Brendan O'Neill. Brendan, good morning. Just reading through that list of horrendous attacks that have taken place just in the last year, it's absolutely devastating. You've written about this in Spiked. What's your assessment of this year in terms of the growing risk to British Jews?
I think it's really bad. You know, I don't want to scaremonger too much, and I hope Jews don't leave this country, which some people are thinking of doing. But it is really bad. We have to be very honest. And there's all those attacks you've just mentioned, literal killings of Jews in America, Australia and Britain in 2025. That's a very serious situation. You know, I say that in my piece that this is the year anti-Semitism went apocalyptic. You know, we saw actual violence against Jews by deranged anti-Semites. And of course, alongside that, we had the usual marches on the streets against Israel, which so often crossed the line into anti-Semitism, people calling the Jewish state a Nazi entity, people saying that the Jews behave like Hitler used to behave, you know, all these tropes against the Jews being wielded out again and again by so-called progressives. I think it's been all round a terrible year, and we have seen a resurgence of the world's oldest racism.
And that resurgence, Brendan O'Neill, being led primarily, appears to me, and indeed I hope to the rest of the world, by Islamists. But they've also taken an alliance with a lot of left-wing figures. And quite curiously, in recent times, we've seen, you know, some leading and popular Muslim voices speaking to also members of the far right. So we've seen Nick Griffin on podcasts with major Muslim websites talking about Jews as well. It seems that this hatred is spreading in all sorts of directions.
Yeah, we are witnessing the unholiest of marriages. I mean, the most obvious one is the Islamo left, you know, this kind of connection between Islamists and leftists. You know, it's so bizarre. A lot of these leftists who are marching shoulder to shoulder with radical Islamists, I mean, they wouldn't last a second in a place like Gaza. They'd be thrown off the top of a building before they could get, you know, open their mouths. It's a very curious marriage of these two political movements. I think that the thing that unifies them, of course, is this kind of burning hatred for the Jewish nation, and in some cases just an outright hatred for the Jewish people. But you're right, it's spreading into the far right as well. I mean, there's always been anti-Semitism in the far right, and that's coming back to life too on the back of Israelophobia. A lot of these kind of far right figures are laundering their old anti-Semitism through the Israel issue and presenting it as anti-Zionism. And we see the same amongst the crank right in America with people like Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes. I mean, these are just classical anti-Semites who spread actual conspiracy theories about the Jews running the world. So, you know, from the far right to the far left, and then with these kind of Islamist movements that are pouring across our borders and in some cases taking over certain institutions, as a consequence of all those things, I think Jews are in trouble in our country unless we stand shoulder to shoulder with them.
But is standing shoulder to shoulder enough? Because you've just mentioned, of course, we've had massive immigration from some of the more hardline, conservative Islamic countries. There are now almost no Jews living in any Muslim majority countries in the world. The question has to be posed, is it possible for Jews to live safely alongside large numbers of populations where there may be Islamists hiding in their midst?
I don't think it is possible. And I think you're absolutely right. We face a very serious choice in this country about who we value more. The Jews who have lived here for decades and decades, in some cases for centuries, and who have integrated incredibly well into this country and contribute to it enormously. Do we value that, or do we value this kind of open borders policy and this being kind to so-called refugees, which often just means allowing people from very regressive cultures to come into our country as and when they please? I know which one I value more, and I think we've got to say that as a country. You know, the truth of the matter is, no one would ever send their 15-year-old daughter to stay in a place like Kandahar because she wouldn't be safe there. Also, most Jews probably wouldn't go to holiday in a place like Kandahar or Kabul because they wouldn't feel safe there either under the Islamist regime. And yet we are bringing young men from those places to this country to live amongst or nearby Jewish populations, to live on the same streets as our 15-year-old daughters. This is crazy behavior, and it is unquestionably endangering the country. So you're right, we need a very serious discussion about our borders and serious action on our borders in order to protect the communities that live in this country.
But Brendan, how do you think we land that message that these particular cultures are dangerous, these particular cultures tend towards anti-Semitism, tends towards misogyny, when all of our newspapers and all of our establishment are full with statements such as diversity is our strength or all cultures are equal? How do we break that misunderstanding that all cultures are equally good?
We just have to keep saying that it's not true. I remember a few months ago, Kemi Badenoch got into serious trouble because she said all cultures are not equally valid. And she also said that we shouldn't be letting people who are anti-Semitic or who hate Israel into this country. She was absolutely right on both fronts. If someone has ever displayed any anti-Semitism or Israelophobia, they should not be allowed into this country. There is no question about that. And that would discount people from lots of Middle Eastern nations where anti-Semitism is entirely ingrained. And I think we've got to say, listen, some cultures are morally superior to others. Now, that might sound like a harsh thing and a judgmental thing, but it's absolutely true. The Western way of life, as it previously existed at least, is superior to the Afghan way of life under the Taliban. And I think we have to be honest that when you bring one to mix with the other, there are going to be serious problems for Jewish people, for women, and for other people across the UK. We've got to keep saying that. We've got to convince more politicians of that case in order that there might be change.
Now, Brendan, you are, I think, one of the foremost free speech activists in the United Kingdom. I think at the same time, when we're talking about tackling anti-Semitism, there's also a growing concern among some Jews that that's being used to push forward a greater degree of censorship as well, particularly on criminalising chants such as From the River to the Sea, and also about globalising the Intifada. We've heard that recently as well. What do you make about those campaigns and recent efforts taken by the police in reaction to terrorist attacks to start clamping down more on those expressions?
I think Globalise the Intifada is a call for anti-Jewish violence. There's no question. You know, the second Intifada, the one that lasted until 2005, the one that is most recent, was an orgy of anti-Jewish violence carried out by Hamas. They blew up young Jews in discos, on buses, in pizza restaurants. That's what people are referring to when they say globalise the Intifada. They might not know that, which makes them ignorant, or they might know it, which makes them racist. So I think they've got to make a choice. Are you being ignorant or are you being anti-Semitic when you make that chant? I think it's deeply regretful that the police are having to take action. I am a free speech fundamentalist. I don't want the state to interfere with any forms of expression. But the truth of the matter is that the police wouldn't have to have taken this action if these leftists had listened to the Jews of Britain, who have been saying for 2 years now that this chant is unacceptable. It makes them feel unsafe. It makes them feel they can't go into the centre of town on a Saturday. They feel that it is a call for violence against their community. If the left had any respect for the Jewish people in Britain and took their concerns seriously and actually viewed them as their equals, they would have stopped doing this chant of their own volition. And it's because of that mistake that the police have had to take some action.
Brendan O'Neill, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And Charlie, last week we had Lord Polak on the show talking about how for the first time he's spoken to his children about whether or not it's safe to bring up his grandchildren here in the UK. It's tragic.
I think it will be. I think Jews in Britain will absolutely have a place to stay, but more action does need to be taken. Right, it's 10:46, and up next, passengers are warned to brace for airfare hikes, and apparently Labour's budget is to blame. Anna O'Reilly has more for us.
Yes, we're here at Manchester Airport, which is facing some of the highest rises, a hike of £4.2 million. But if you can still afford to get away and you want to know what the weather's like abroad, here's the European weather forecast.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there. Are you after some sunshine this Christmas period? There is some on offer, particularly if you're going to the Canaries. Plenty of sunshine here, but Madeira seeing outbreaks of rain for Tuesday and brighter skies for Spain and Portugal. Sunny spells here, 1 or 2 showers, but more settled across into Italy, parts of Greece where we'll see showers, some longer spells of rain at times, but particularly mild for the time of year, 15, 16 Celsius. Turning cooler here over the next few days, but increasing amounts of sunshine too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 9 minutes to 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Right, air passengers, they're being warned to brace for ticket hikes as regional airports across Britain face unprecedented rises in property tax next year.
Well, joining us now live from Manchester Airport is GB News reporter Anna Riley. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning, Miriam and Charlie. Yes, we're here at Manchester Airport. It's the UK's third busiest airport. It sees around 30 million passengers per year, but it's one of the regional airports that's going to be hit the hardest by these hikes in property tax. It's going to have to pay an extra £4.2 million per year, so that's £18.1 million. And of course, those costs are going to be passed on to passengers. passengers. That's what's been said, and that these rises are unprecedented. Now, these figures come from global tax firm Ryan's calculation of the Value Office Agents data, and that's found that the rateable values have jumped more than sixfold in some cases in the latest property revaluation, sending tax bills soaring even higher. Now, even with transitional relief, which limits increases to 30% next year, regional airports will still endure some of the largest cash increases in the country. And most airports will see their bills more than double over the next 3 years. Well, the Manchester Airports Group spokesman has said that airports were already some of the highest rates payers in the country, and that they were prepared to pay significantly more. But they say that increases of more than 100% mean that they have to look again at their plans to invest more than £2 billion in their airports across the UK over the next 5 years. They say that it is inevitable that air travel will become more expensive as the industry absorbs these costs, and they say that that impacts hard-working people throughout the country and makes global trade harder for businesses. Well, Airports UK, that's the trade group that represents this sector, they've also spoken out. They say that they're working on a response to the Treasury's consultation on the business rates plan, and that closes in February.
Anna Riley, thank you very much for that report, and also for speaking over the Manchester to Prague service, and just then the Manchester to Marrakesh Jet2 holiday service there as well. Trying to get in the way of your live report, but doing a sterling job as ever. Thank you very much, Anna Riley.
Are you a secret plane spotter, Charlie?
I love planes, I'll be honest with you. Absolutely, I am. Not secret about it.
Well, we'll send you there next time. Well,
please.
Moving on. An alleged Egyptian extremist welcomed to Britain by Sir Keir Starmer claims his words were twisted. This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Another cloudy day to come. Still got that chilly feel as well, but there is more in the way of sunshine to come for northern areas through this afternoon as well as into Tuesday. That's because this cold front is pushing down from the north. It won't introduce much rain at all, but it will bring clearer air with it, and that will introduce some sunshine for parts of Scotland and some northern areas of England into this afternoon. We'll still see some sunshine across western areas of Wales, southwestern England as well, but if further inland and across many eastern coasts, we will see some pretty grey skies through much of today, a risk of some showery rain as well as across eastern coasts. Still a cold feel as well, temperatures in the low single figures, feeling a little bit colder than that with the strength of the northerly breeze. Now that northerly breeze will push some showers further inland into this evening, but across much of Scotland it should remain dry. Clearer skies developing for much of western areas, the Highlands, the Central Belt as well as Northern Ireland, seeing clear skies into this evening. Cloudy skies though further east. You could see that rain here across many northeastern areas of England as well as the southeast of England as well. Quite a strong wind through the English Channel as well, which will introduce a risk of showers into parts of the southwest as the night goes on. Now those clearer skies start to be more widely seen overnight tonight, pushing into much of northern England, southeastern areas of England as well, seeing some clearer skies by Tuesday morning. That will allow temperatures to fall away a little bit lower, but the coldest temperatures are expected across parts of Scotland. Here we should see a fairly harsh frost to start the day on Tuesday, but across more western areas, parts of Wales, southwestern England, it will be a slightly milder start to the day. More in the way of sunshine to come on Tuesday wherever you are. There is still a risk of showers just along the far southwest of England. Elsewhere though, it should be relatively dry and bright, but it's still going to be a chilly one with a northerly wind, particularly across eastern coasts. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to become our biggest cash prize winner to date. £85,000 in totally tax-free cash could be making its way from our bank account to yours. It would be like having over £7,000 per month extra to play with each month for a whole year. That could be you, safe in the knowledge that 2026 is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 11 o'clock on Monday, the 29th of December. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Well, should he stay or should he go? The Prime Minister is facing a growing political storm after welcoming the Egyptian-British activist Abd El Fattah to the UK. He's been accused of posting anti-Semitic and racist comments online, but overnight the activist issued an apology. But it's not gone down well with everyone, because Tories and Reform are both saying he should be deported.
This man is a scumbag. He has no place in the UK, and if I was Home Secretary, I would strip him of his British citizenship and deport him.
They're prioritising either sort of political virtue signalling, as in this case, or just speeding up applications to clear the backlog, rather than putting the British people first.
And French police unions appear to say no to efforts to stop the boats, as they're refusing to incapacitate vessels crossing the channel.
We have made a lot of progress on ending that war, which is really certainly the most deadly war since World War II.
Lots of progress, but no breakthrough. 2 hours of peace talks last night, but Trump and Zelensky say that they're still working on that peace plan for Ukraine, as many thorny questions over territory remain.
And pothole compensation claims have rocketed by 90% in just 3 years, but only a quarter result in payouts from local councils. Mr. Pothole will be joining us live from one particular dodgy street, and he is furious. Charlie, I do find this pothole story a little bit triggering because when I was an MP, of course, this is a huge bone of contention for constituents. They want potholes fixing, and rightly so, but MPs have absolutely no power to do anything about it. So you spend your whole time trying to persuade the local council to fill them in. But big question, why is it getting so bad? We're much worse than other European countries, according to data.
And in rural areas, it's a total nightmare. You have to drive around in a tank in some parts of the southwest of England. I think, you know, loads of people in Dorset and Devon constantly complaining that their country roads are just impossible to navigate. You're guaranteed a puncture in some of these necks of the woods. And that's why we end up with people with the name like Mr. Pothole going around and checking in on such areas. Very much looking forward to speaking to him. And what do you think? Let us know at home, gbnews.com/your say. Is Miriam right to say that she was powerless as an MP to deal with potholes? Maybe more of our MPs should be out and about actually filling in them themselves. That could have been a good use of time for some of our parliamentarians. A high-vis jacket. A high-vis jacket that you could put to very good use,
Absolutely.
I think. Now, you're no longer an MP, Miriam, but it could be a good thing to do in our spare time. Maybe you could be Mrs. Pothole. That could be a gig, don't you think? Mrs. Pothole.
Apparently there are 11 million potholes in the UK, so if 6 people club together to fix one, we could have them all done. Well, 6 people per pothole.
Okay, all right.
Do the math.
I was going to say, it's a busy I'm sorry, it's not really my space.
Hard, but honestly.
You're the science teacher, not me. All right, I think we can cross over now to Aaron Armstrong. He's got your latest news headlines.
Thanks, Charlie. Good morning to you. 3 minutes past 11 here in the GB Newsroom. The British-Egyptian campaigner Alaa Abd El-Fattah has apologised after social media message emerged that show him endorsing the killing of Zionists and police. Sir Keir Starmer's facing calls from MPs across the House to strip Mr El-Fattah of his British citizenship. The activist, who returned to the UK on Boxing Day following several years of imprisonment in Egypt, says his posts have been completely twisted. He says they've lost their meaning, but Conservatives and Reform UK say the Home Secretary should look at revoking his British citizenship. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says Mr El-Fattah should be deported.
He said he hated white people, he described white people as dogs, he expressed anti-Semitic views, he called for Jewish civilians to be murdered, he called for Downing Street to be burnt down, he called for the British police to be attacked. This man is a scumbag, he has no place in the UK, and if I was Home Secretary, I would strip him of his British citizenship and deport him to Egypt. And if Shabana Mahmood had our country's interests at heart, she would be doing exactly that today.
President Trump says a lot of progress has been made after a meeting with President Zelensky of Ukraine to discuss a deal to end the war with Russia. Speaking at a news conference in Florida, the leaders accepted significant challenges remain. They were discussing the updated version of a US-brokered 20-point peace plan, which Moscow's yet to support. Mr. Trump says the issue of territorial concessions in the disputed Donbass region remain unresolved, but both leaders suggested they've almost reached agreement on security guarantees for Ukraine.
And our meeting was excellent. We covered, somebody would say 95%, I don't know what percent, but we have made a lot of progress on ending that war, which is really certainly the most deadly war since World War II.
China says it's begun large-scale military operations around Taiwan. The simulations include a blockade of major ports, attacking maritime targets and fending off what it calls international interference. The Taiwanese government says it's deployed appropriate force in response and has called on Beijing to halt activities. China, which claims the self-ruled island as its territory, sanctioned a number of US arms firms last week after they sold arms to Taiwan. And air passengers are being warned to brace themselves for flight prices to jump as regional airports across the UK face rises in property tax next year. New government data shows most airports will see their bills more than double over the next 3 years. Bristol, Manchester and Birmingham will be amongst the worst hit, with their business rates quadrupling in 2026. Those are your headlines. I'll have much more coming up a little bit later.
Welcome back. It's 6 minutes past 11. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Now let's go to our top story here, because Sir Keir Starmer is under mounting pressure to revoke the British citizenship of an alleged extremist.
Yes, Alaa Abdel Fattah, who has called for Zionists to be killed, was welcomed to the UK by the Prime Minister over the weekend.
Yes, the Egyptian activist, he was jailed by Cairo for 6 years, but while he was imprisoned, he was granted British citizenship in 2021 through his mother, who was born here.
Well, El Fattah released a statement overnight saying he apologised unequivocally for the historic tweets, but claimed that some of the posts have been completely twisted out of their meaning.
Well, we're joined now by David Patrick Karakos, the commentator and war correspondent, for more on this story. Good morning, David. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, the process by which El Fattah gathered his citizenship has come into question overnight. More details being released by the Telegraph newspaper saying that an ECHR ruling had meant that the good character assessment had been removed.
Well, I mean, this is a new bit of news. It's entirely possible. This story is from start to finish, entirely depressing. Political myopia, security negligence, and just downright incompetence. To get a sense of who this guy is, you didn't need some kind of Secret Service vetting. You just needed to scroll through his feed. And the most absurd thing now, and I'm sure you've both seen this, guys, is last night, all of these MPs scrambling to distance themselves. Ian Duncan Smith, Alicia Kearns going, well, it had nothing to do with me. I assume the vetting had been done. It's just from start to finish a circus. But it's a circus that's actually serious. Why is this guy in our country? What value does he add? And as you have alluded to there, he's not even really British in a true sense. The line is very thin. Now, look, his mother, born in Britain, British citizen, fine. But to the best of my knowledge, he's barely, if at all, lived in Britain. And he clearly despises it. So where is the upside to this? I fail to see it. And you know what's really bad is that there are some genuine people fleeing persecution, and this is going to affect them as well, because this thing from start to finish is a joke. People are furious, and what they're furious about, I think, is that this is not about him. This is about modern Britain, the incompetence of government. He's a microcosm of it.
David, it's interesting how, you mentioned politicians of the left and right have, in the past, very much supported him. And do you think it's almost a case of kind of our enemy's enemy is our friend? And because he was against some of the more authoritarian Arab regimes in the Arab Spring, we assume, therefore, that he is somebody with Western values, whereas actually the opposite has turned out to be the case.
I think that's very, very true. And what we know about the world is my enemy's enemy is not always my friend. Sometimes my enemy's enemy is my enemy as well. And look, this is really, really important. I want to sort of raise another point here. This thing, my tweets were taken out of context. This age-old excuse. Look, I've spent a lot of time going through these tweets. And incidentally, by the way, a lot of the worst ones are in Arabic, okay, which is always very telling. So there's some premeditation here. Look, there's certain things where he's what you'd call an edgelord. You know, he got off clearly on being a bit rude online. But there are certain things that are so clear and so repeated throughout, the killing of all Zionists, the killing of the police, and I want to sort of raise a point here to both of you and to all your viewers. Things are taken out of context. I remember when Mel Gibson said, when he said Jews cause all the wars in the world, when he said, I was drunk. And I remember thinking, well, what do you do when you're drunk? Maybe you talk a bit too much. You don't decide between the 4th and 5th tequila that the Jews are responsible for all the ills in the world if you've got a problem. You don't tweet repeatedly about white people, about the police, over and over again because, you're angry or you did this or that. You do it because you believe it. And now he's here. Wonderful.
And David, he said in one of those tweets, I'm far from British. Well, according to the state, he is now British. They, of course, have given him that passport. Now, the Labour government are going to be in a huge crisis right now, trying to find a way out of this. Having been delighted over the weekend about him being brought to the United Kingdom, they now have to find a way to resist all of this political opposition, calling for him to be detained, deported and stripped of his citizenship. But the Prime Minister, David, is a human rights lawyer who believes in these systems and these processes. Is there a way out of this for Sir Keir Starmer without them losing too much sort of political capital?
OK, first of all, I'm not sure Keir Starmer has any political capital left to lose. It's really interesting, all of this stuff. Every government, and I've said this before, gets to a point where everything that can go wrong does go wrong. and a lot more. Usually, though, this happens after 4 or 5 years, maybe in a second term. This double-decker clown bus of a government goes from one crisis to the next. Is there a way out of it? Not really. I mean, I think that the rot in Labour is terminal, but there's so much of these things. There'll be another scandal next week. So what will happen, I guess, is this government will just limp on and on and on, and any legitimacy in terms of its moral credibility and its competence is just hemorrhaging.
But David, specifically on this, what can they do specifically here? I mean, do you think it's possible that Labour might strip him of his citizenship? Might they go against that 29 decision from the ECHR on Article 8, Article 14? No, what can they actually do?
Because we have not left the ECHR.
Right.
So I think it will be very difficult for them to do this because, you know, one of the things is you can't deport people back to countries where their life is at risk. Now, you can argue he's been pardoned, but I'd be very, very surprised if they can do that. This is not Shamima Egun. It's a different case entirely. So yet again, we're hamstrung both by our domestic incompetence and our European entanglement. As I said at the beginning, I find this very depressing. From start to finish, it's just a joke.
What we're really hamstrung by, though, is the plethora of human rights law that is entangling our government, other Western governments. Do you think that since the Second World War, we have progressively prioritised individual rights so much now that there's no way for governments to prioritise the national good or what might have been called the common good?
So, look, this is a very interesting question and it's a fair one. So let's start by saying, look, there was a reason that human rights came to the fore as one of the overarching political doctrines of the 20th century, and that was because of the horrors of World War II. And in and of themselves, I don't think anyone can quibble with them. And in a century where human rights were nothing, it's good that they came to the forefront of political thinking. But I think it's slightly out of control now. Yes, I think the rights of the individual, and I'm not saying this philosophically, but in certain instances, has led to insane decisions. Look, the amount of money that was spent by governments, the amount of fees that were trousered by human rights lawyers who were trying to stop the deportation of people, by the way, that were guilty, that were proven guilty, terrorists that were a danger, that took us years to get out of the country at great expense, shows that the system has become slightly insane. Look, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't want to live in a world where people's human rights are not looked after. But it's out of control now. Okay. It's a racket. And more to the point is,
pass me a Daily Mail, David. Need to show you this front page. Kemi says, I don't want people who hate our country coming here. Now, you mentioned Ian Duncan-Smith and Alicia Kearns there saying, I regret campaigning for this man to be freed and to be brought to Britain. The Conservatives going loud on this now, front page of the Daily Mail saying this can't happen. It's going to be very difficult for them to push that argument forward, considering James Cleverly, who's on Kemi's front bench, was campaigning vociferously for this man in 2022. Liz Truss, the former Prime Minister, she's very angry about it right now, despite the fact that she made several interventions herself, some of her old tweets coming back to bite her overnight as well. The Conservatives are facing a credibility gap on this man as well, aren't they?
Massively. You talk about interventions. They're the ones that gave him the citizenship. It wasn't Labour. Look, to a large degree, and I write this in my piece today in the Mail, the Tories and Labour have just become one uni-party of chaos. Both of them are culpable for a lot of the things we see today, from mass migration, from the consistent kowtowing to the human rights lobby and so on and so forth. And this is where we end up, this kind of mess.
Well, David, Patrick Karakos, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Right to Government spokesperson has said that Mr El Fattah is a British citizen. It has been a long-standing priority under successive governments to work for his release from detention and to see him reunited with his family in the UK. The Home Office is also not commenting on individual cases today amid those calls for him to be detained, deported, and also for his citizenship to be revoked.
Well, moving on, French police have refused to stop small boat migrants from crossing the channel by incapacitating their vessels.
Yes, unions representing the officers have blocked plans for police to stop the dinghies by using tactics such as jamming the propellers on the grounds that they could face prosecution if any migrants died as a result.
Well, we're joined now by Tony Smith, the former Director General of UK Border Force. Tony, good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. Now, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, was pinning his hopes on the French changing their rules so that their police could turn back and stop the boats. That hope has now died.
Yeah, hi Miriam. Well, I'm not sure, that was hope, expectation or whatever it was, but we haven't really seen very much, have we, at all from the French in terms of stopping the boats. I'm not surprised, to be honest, by this position that the unions have taken about, their officers intervening at sea, because at the end of the day, preservation of life is paramount. And there is a risk, even in shallow waters, if they do go into the water and try to disable a dinghy, someone could go overboard and drown. I think what the unions are saying, quite rightly, is, well, what happens then if I'm a French police officer and someone drowns as a result of an act or omission on my chain of causation back to me? Am I culpable? And they're saying, well, yes, you are. And Miriam, I'd like to just say this is the same reason I often get asked why the border force, our border force, don't push the dinghies back. Whether it's a navy or the border force, just sail up against these dinghies and bump them back into French waters for the same reason. Because if you are responsible for some kind of an act which could result in capsizing a vessel, and these vessels are very, very overcrowded, they're very low in the water, they're extremely unsafe, the life jackets they have are not fit for purpose, and somebody drowns, then a border force officer could very well find themselves in court being prosecuted for culpable homicide or something. So we do need a solution for this, but the sorts of solutions we're talking about are not the right ones. And the agreement we need with the French is, first and foremost, yes, of course, let's make people safe. Whether they pick them up or we pick them up, let's make them safe and well first, but then take them straight back to France. That's what should happen. That's what should have happened in the first place. But of course, the French have never agreed to that, have they?
Well, Tony, one of the problems we've got here is, of course, the boats are rarely ever empty. The tactics have changed with them being pushed from rivers further inshore, and they need often dozens of people on board and helping out to get them towards the coast because the boats are growing in size. We've had the super mega dinghy crossing earlier this year with more and more numbers getting on board. So these plans, we've been speaking about them for months. The French unions have been resisting for so long, and it's getting harder for them to intervene because, as I said, they're never empty and those tactics are changing.
Yeah, Charlie, as you know, I chair border security conferences around the world. There are mitigations to maritime interventions. There are floating barriers. They're out on the Rio Grande in America, on the Mexican border. They're now being used on the eastern front with Russia on some of the lakes, which are safe. And you could put those in the inland waterways. That would stop the dinghies from actually being able to pass up into around to the beaches. But the French so far have, refused to accept that kind of help, which is readily available. So there are mitigations available. I just wonder whether they've got the real political will, Charlie, to do this. There are lots of things I think that could be done. There's technologies, drone technology to find out where the dinghies are in the first place, monitor the movements of the smugglers on the French beaches. I'm just not convinced, I believe the technology and the capabilities are there. I'm just not convinced that the political will is there on the French side, I'm afraid.
But Tony, I just want to pick up on what you said in your previous answer, that the border force, the gendarmes as well, have responsibility to ensure that there's no loss of life. But why? If migrants have set off on an illegal journey, knowing that they may be pushed back, why isn't it their own responsibility for taking their life into their own hands?
Well, there is that argument, and certainly, Miriam, that's what I would argue if I was one of those officers. But the law of the sea is very clear that, you have a duty, actually, to save lives. And these vessels are deliberately overloaded and clearly made virtually unsafe. The smugglers don't care about humanity. Drownings do happen. And I think there's a real worry that if we haven't got the legal framework right in the first place, that people will drown. And I don't think we should be seeing people drowning, no matter who they are or where they're from. They should be made safe. I think that's the right thing to do, but it's perfectly possible, Miriam. There's no reason at all why the French could not agree with us. We could put our officers on their boats, they could put officers on our boats, we could have joint patrols. All that is feasible under international law. They simply won't do it, and that's the problem.
All right, Tony Smith, former Director General of the UK Border Force, thank you very much for your time this morning. Sometimes, Miriam, I do wish we still had Normandy, so we didn't have to rely on the French, who clearly don't want to put in these blockades. That strategy that Tony's talking about, we've got it in Russia, it's on the Rio Grande, it's there. I think he's right, the political will just isn't there for them to deal with it. Maybe they'll change with the new government in France.
All Henry VIII's fault. Well, still to come, staff at a Wetherspoons pub have been accused of refusing to serve gender-critical campaigners. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 24 minutes past 11. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Well, we're joined again in the studio by the former Reform UK spokesman, Gawain Towler, and the Labour councillor, Stuart Fawcett. Welcome back, you two. Shall we start with this curious story in the Telegraph about some campaigners, gender-critical campaigners, being refused drinks out of Wetherspoons, which has really surprised me, Gawain, because I always have Spoons down as a sort of very welcoming brand, the sort of staff who'd let anyone come in, and for some reason these people have been blocked from having a drink.
It is very odd. There again, I mean, Spoons is a very big chain.
Right.
It depends on the particular pub, I guess, and the staff in that pub. But normally you have to be really, really out there to be barred. You need to smash the place up, been rude to the clientele and all the rest of it. I suspect this crowd were none of those things. They were just upset maybe the duty manager on the day. But the whole range of Wetherspoons, I suspect, would not give a monkey's about what somebody's beliefs were. They'll just serve them cheap beer and decent food.
I mean, Stuart, it's interesting to look at this story alongside the story about hairdressers refusing to allow Labour MPs into their salons. Do you think that the politicisation of everyday life has just gone too far now?
I mean, I am concerned for the state of haircuts among Labour MPs, naturally. And I'm worried if Wetherspoons has gone woke. But you know, this sort of everyday cancelling is a bit concerning. I mean, especially when you think of pubs. We go to pubs to have conversations, and we may disagree with people's opinions and their outlook. So I'm quite uncomfortable with that outlook as it is. I get that there are some parts of society who you think it's not going to be conducive to have them alongside our everyday punters. That's kind of understandable if if you're threatening behaviour or the things you're doing or saying, especially if you're having alcohol, isn't okay. But broadly speaking, I think pubs, we should have a good broad range of conversation.
Apart from the else, we've got the Banter ban coming in, haven't we? Where pub staff can be blamed for the comments made by customers. But in this instance, it just, if anything, a Spoons is the sort of place that you can say what on earth you'd like to, and people, it seems an odd place for somebody who is so terrified of other people's opinions to be working in, because I've been in Spoons up and down the country, and trust me, some of the opinions that one hears are quite ripe.
Yes.
But so what?
Yeah, quite right.
I can't imagine somebody working at Spoons being the sort of pink-head scaredy that will go in and go, oh, no, you can't possibly say that. It's just not, why would you work there?
This happened at a branch in Edinburgh. I was a student there. I enjoyed many a trip to the Spoons.
Many Spoons, I suspect.
Many a spoon. And so Tim Martin, who's the founder and chairman of the chain, he said that his staff have been wrong to refuse to serve them. He said if you win a court case, especially a Supreme Court case, this is obviously for Women's Scotland, you would expect to be allowed to celebrate in a pub. I'm so glad they were able to do so, albeit after an initial hiccup.
Funnily enough, on that day, we went to a pub that used to be a Spoons on Whitehall with the women in Scotland and celebrated quite nicely.
There we go.
Well, it does all come back to this crazy idea that words are violence, doesn't it? Well, speaking of actual violence, Armed Forces gap year will need to be diverse and inclusive. What do you think to that, as a former military man, Stuart?
I think the most important thing that our military can do is be ready to fight a war and defend our country. I don't know if the enemy are going to be particularly concerned about diversity in that situation, but, you know, seriously, I'm pleased to see this is happening, that people are going to be exposed to the incredible things that a military career can bring, not just to the individual, but the skills it invests in people who then take that forward into civilian life. Because, you know, you see some of the stories of veterans in trouble, and that does happen, but the overwhelming amount of people who have been in the military really do contribute to our society, and the skills that they bring from the investment they've had in the military is fantastic. I think it's starting off at about 150 a year.
150, but maybe rising to 1,000.
Yeah.
And going, this gap year scheme, it's attracted quite a lot of attention. And the iPaper had this exclusive about it last week, and they're reporting today that when you look at the statistics and who's in the armed forces, when you look at the representation, as it's being put, people from ethnic minority backgrounds, they make up only 3.3% of officers in the UK regular armed forces, which is compared with around 18% of the wider population. Now, to that, a lot of people are saying that the army and the military needs to do more to attract them. But alternatively, you could also say perhaps the problem is with the ethnic minority backgrounds who aren't wanting to serve in the military. Why is it only the military they're looking at as a problem?
I got a Territorial Army Commission, and I remember at Sandhurst, and this fellow standing next to me on parade just about questioned an order from the Sergeant Major, the colour sergeant, and this fellow turned on him and said, "Sir, we're here to defend democracy, not practice it. And the military is a command structure. And frankly, I'm with you, I don't care. I want to make sure that they are decent fighting men and women, the sort of people we can rely on to defend our country, and worrying about a diversity qua diversity. Look, if somebody wants to join, great, absolutely great. If they're up to it, if they can pass all the courses, if they pass the qualifications to get in, great. But to worry about things like diversity, actually, I don't care who's defending us. I really don't.
Well, I do. I mean, I want them to be ready for fighting. And I think, and I speak to Stuart, I suppose the military isn't really a diverse and inclusive place. They have severe limitations on who can join. And also, there are expectations that those who do sign up, they're exempt from certain elements of the Equality Act, for example, the military, on age and other areas, on disability, of course. We don't want the infirm, the incapable, or communists, right? That's generally the view that you hear from some officers and soldiers.
I think what this boils down to is legitimate reason, and there is a legitimate reason for those things being in place, because the military has certain requirements. You know, it has to be completely separate to political views and salient to defending democracy, not being a direct participant. So, yes, and there are thresholds and standards. You mentioned there about ethnic minorities only making up a small amount of officer cadre, but actually there's a whole other range of jobs that people are suited for in the military that contribute to the whole picture. So, yeah, I think the most important thing is that people are going in and they are eligible to do the jobs that are required, because if it comes to the point where that is needed and their performance is needed, it can't be delivered, we'll pay for that in terms of our national security, and that really does take precedence. So I think we're in the right place at the moment with that as it is.
I think, you know, we do need diverse backgrounds in the military, especially in roles. We need more women to do engagement when they're overseas in terms of speaking to other women who might be able to provide information. We do need a range of backgrounds for intelligence gathering. That's hugely important. But it can't be, surely, that the front of our recruitment campaign, obviously the army's come under so much criticism, Gawain, for those you belong here advertisement campaigns. We had one advert for the army which featured, we'll take a break from a patrol to use a prayer map.
Yes, but of course, in Islam, I understand that if you're in warfighting, you don't actually have to pray those 5 times a day. So actually, it's a complete bunk anyhow.
It was a bit of a mess.
I think the priority should be warfighting capability.
Yes, absolutely.
And ability to do that.
Okay. We're agreeing again.
Gawain, Stuart, thank you very much.
Well, moving on, we have some breaking news for you now. A mother and her 2 children have been killed in a blaze which destroyed their home on Boxing Day. Emergency services were called to the well-established fire on Brinscombe Hill in Stroud, Gloucestershire, on Friday.
Yeah, that breaking news coming into us just now. It is 11:32 and we'll cross now to Aaron Armstrong for a 60-second news update.
Thanks, good morning to you. The Prime Minister facing calls from MPs across the House to strip Alaa Abd El Fattah of his British citizenship after the emergence of historic posts endorsing violence against Jewish people and police. Mr El Fattah has apologised, saying the comments were old and taken out of context, but Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says he should be deported.
This man is a scumbag. He has no place in the UK, and if I was Home Secretary, I would strip him of his British citizenship.
Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky say they're close to agreeing a peace plan for Ukraine, but thorny questions over territory remain. The US president says the US has offered security guarantees for a period of 15 years and says talks on this point are close to 95% done.
We have made a lot of progress on ending that war, which is really certainly the most deadly war since World War II.
New NHS figures show the wait for GP appointments have soared under Labour, with around 250,000 more people now waiting over a month to be seen. The Liberal Democrats who analysed the data say it represents a damning failure by the government to improve access. Air passengers being warned to brace for flight prices to jump as regional airports across the UK are facing unprecedented rises in property tax next year. And 10 men have been named super donors by NHS Blood and Transplant. They're the only people in the last 20 years who've donated blood, plasma, platelets and stem cells, which are used to help treat a variety of injuries and illnesses. And those are your latest headlines. I'll be back with more at 12.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, coming up next on Britain's Newsroom, pothole compensation claims have rocketed by 90% in just 3 years. A furious Mr. Pothole joins us from a particularly dodgy road. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Another cloudy day to come. Still got that chilly feel as well, but there is more in the way of sunshine to come for northern areas through this afternoon as well as into Tuesday. That's because this cold front is pushing down from the north. It won't introduce much rain at all, but it will bring clearer air with it, and that will introduce some sunshine for parts of Scotland and some northern areas of England into this afternoon. We'll still see some sunshine across western areas of Wales, southwestern England as well, but if further inland and across many eastern coasts, we will see some pretty grey skies through much of today, a risk of some showery rain as well as across eastern coasts. Still a cold feel as well, temperatures in the low single figures, feeling a little bit colder than that with the strength of the northerly breeze. Now that northerly breeze will push some showers further inland into this evening, but across much of Scotland it should remain dry. Clearer skies developing for much of western areas, the Highlands, the Central Belt as well as Northern Ireland, seeing clear skies into this evening. Cloudy skies though further east. You can see that rain here across many northeastern areas of England as well as the southeast of England as well. Quite a strong wind through the English Channel as well, which will introduce a risk of showers into parts of the southwest as the night goes on. Now those clearer skies start to be more widely seen overnight tonight, pushing into much of northern England, southeastern areas of England as well, seeing some clearer skies by Tuesday morning. That will allow temperatures to fall away a little bit lower, but the coldest temperatures are expected across parts of Scotland. Here we should see a fairly harsh frost to start the day on Tuesday, but across more western areas, parts of Wales, southwestern England, it will be a slightly milder start to the day. More in the way of sunshine to come on Tuesday wherever you are. There is still a risk of showers just along the far southwest of England. Elsewhere though it should be relatively dry and bright, but it's still going to be a chilly one with a northerly wind, particularly across eastern coasts. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's 11:38 and you're watching me, Miriam.
Swap identities is fine.
I'm Charlie Peters. She's Miriam Cates. It's Britain's Newsroom. It's GB News.
The straps should give us a clue if we forget.
I was calling her Mrs. Pothole in the break, actually, because the pothole crisis has gotten a lot worse. Compensation claims made to councils in Britain have spiked by 90% in 3 years, but only a quarter have resulted in a payout.
Well, that's according to new analysis by the Royal Automobile Club, who found that 53,000 claims more were submitted last year than the year before.
So why are our roads so bad? And joining us now is Mr. Pothole. It's Mark Morrill. Good morning to you, sir. How are you? And I believe you're there on a street well known for its dodgy state.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a large pothole behind me. It's about 1 metre long by about 400 wide and deep. It's about 80 mil deep. Further down the road where I can't get some signal, it's like the surface of the moon, to be honest. I mean, these figures show that no matter what government or authorities try to spin, our road network is failing. We've got a £17 billion backlog in carriageway maintenance in England and Wales not being addressed. Government know there's a major issue, but really won't engage to spend the money. We need to spend an extra £3 billion a year annually, index-linked, resurfacing our roads on top of the current spend to make any difference. And until we do so, I'm afraid motorists are going to suffer. I had a number of people contact me before Christmas, one poor couple stranded on an A road with 2 punctured tyres late at night, asking for advice. I've actually now looked at, there's a couple of companies who offer standalone insurances where it doesn't affect your main insurance. You can get cover for between £1,500 and £2,000 for about £40–45, and a low excess. The way the roads are going, I think it's going to be a growing market for the insurance companies.
Now, I do wonder sometimes, Mark, with these kind of problems, whether or not it's people's perception that things are getting worse or whether they really are. But the data on this is absolutely extraordinary. Apparently, we now have 11 million potholes in the country. And Britain is one of the only countries in the OECD where maintenance spending has fallen. In fact, it's halved between 2006 and now. Yet in other countries, the money being spent is going up. Why do you think Britain is taking such a poor approach to pothole fixing?
I don't think the government actually value the network. I mean, it's the blood supply for the UK economy. It's been neglected. It's a major issue at all elections. They give it lip service. I was part of a Transport Select Committee inquiry that did an excellent report. It's sitting on the Department of Transport shelf somewhere gathering dust. The answers are very simple. They're all looking for a mythical way of repairing potholes. Well, you need to resurface your roads. They're falling to pieces. They're going to get worse. And in 15 years' time, 52% of our roads will be structurally unsound.
Extremely troubling statistics. And when you look through the councils who have paid out to drivers last year, we've seen that Merton Borough Council, so that's in London, they paid the highest average sum per claim, which is £2,267, but it did only pay 5 claims. It is in London, so that's going to be pretty sensible. But it paid 11 grand to drivers. But Derbyshire paid the highest amount out. They spent around £605,000 compensating drivers for pothole-related damage last year, based on an average of £257 each. I mean, these figures, I mean, they must be unsustainable for so many of the councils with rural communities.
Yeah, rural roads. I mean, Derbyshire is one of the worst places in the country. I think Glasgow was second on there. But about 26% of people get some sort of compensation. But if you look at Worcestershire, they reject 99% of all claims for pothole damage.
Do you think the problem here, Mark, is that council budgets are increasingly squeezed, and so, of course, they focus their spending on what their statutory duties, so adult social care, child social care, and things that are, well, what we would see as essential but not legally essential, get thrown out the window, like pothole fixing?
Well, I would argue against that. They've got a statutory duty under the Highways Act, Section 41, to maintain our roads in a safe and reasonable condition. So I have that from councillors before about statutory duties. When you point out they've got a statutory requirement, but they use the law to get out of paying on claims, they use a thing called Section 58. But as I said, with those insurance claims, if you make a claim and successful, pay you, you pay £50 excess, but if they recover the money from the council, you get your excess back. So, it's not a thing I would have originally sort of supported, but the way the world's going, I think motorists need to protect themselves, because if you can protect yourself for less than £1 a week for £2,000 or £3,000 damage to your vehicle, then I think it's a way to go, unfortunately. Not a good thing, but I've advised people to look into it.
Hey, Mark Merrill, Mr. Pothole, thank you very much for your time this morning. We're still joined in the studio by Gawain Towler and Stuart Fawcett. And Stuart, the PM early this year, he said that councils need to prove action on the pothole plague. They had this extra cash, £4.3 billion for major roads, but it's the rural areas that are being hit the hardest here.
So I think what we really need to look at here is, yes, there was a lot more money made available for potholes by the government when it came in, but what it was very clearly searching for was a change of practice. So these were going to be index linked to performance, and only a proportion of the money post that, based upon that performance, was going to be released in order to continue to make sure that it was being spent wisely, which I think is a pretty fair way of looking at it, because we've addressed the same problem in the same way and got the same poor result for a very long time. But it's interesting what you said about Derbyshire there having the largest claims. It being a rural area, car usage is a lot higher. We don't have access to the same public transport. There's a lot more road area as well, and often with the calculations, the money they have apportioned to fix roads, often in a short-term sense, because of the way that local government funding works every year, it's not great. But I think the biggest problem, as you've outlined, is social care. And what you're seeing here is the cost of social care being symptomised with poor maintenance of roads.
Go in very quickly. You've been a political strategist and spokesperson for decades now, always talking about the big issues, but often it comes down to these things like potholes that can drive voting.
Politics, in this instance. What I can say is there's a couple of the councils that we've been running since May where there have been some really good results on potholes. I mean, in Lancashire, there's been a 40% reduction in potholes. And as you were saying, it's a difference in approach. What you used to have is somebody coming in and filling up one pothole, but there are 6 others nearby, and ignoring those. And so, therefore, the way to look at it used to be, if it's not within a metre and a half, you don't do the next one. So that has been one of the major changes. It's been a 40% reduction in the number of potholes in Lancashire. Now, there's 4,000 holes in Blackburn, Lancashire, but not anymore.
Before you fall off your chair, Gawain, thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you also to Stuart Fawcett. Thanks to you both. Right, a Department for Transport spokesperson said the government was investing £7.3 billion over the next 4 years to help councils resurface roads.
Well, don't go away, because still to come, we'll be live from Edinburgh as the 3-day New Year celebrations begin.
Yeah, we're about to chat Hogmanay after the break, but we can't forget about last year where the whole event was scrapped due to the wind and the rain. That cost the city £50 million for the vendors, and that was just one that have many that happen across Europe. The weather lives and dies in these events, so let's take a deep breath, cross our fingers and take a look at the European weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Are you after some sunshine this Christmas period? There is some on offer, particularly if you're going to the Canaries. Plenty of sunshine here, but Madeira seeing outbreaks of rain for Tuesday, and brighter skies for Spain and Portugal. Sunny spells here, 1 or 2 showers, but more settled across into Italy, parts of Greece where we'll see showers, some longer spells of rain at times, but particularly mild for the time of year, 15, 16 Celsius. Turning cooler here over the next few days, but increasing amounts of sunshine too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device, and as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's 10 to 12 and it's almost the end of the year, which means one thing, Hogmanay. Our reporter Tony Maguire is in Edinburgh for the celebrations.
Hello, good morning. Well, it certainly is the start of the celebrations. You might be thinking, well, hold on a minute, New Year's Eve is another, more than 48 hours away, but yet Scotland here, we like to, I guess, do things in style, or some might say just draw it out far much longer than it has to be. But nevertheless, 29th of December, the New Year's festivities get underway. Edinburgh Hogmanay is kind of part of a roll-up into Edinburgh's winter festival along with Edinburgh Christmas. And tonight, 15,000 torchbearers are going to march down the Royal Mile, through the old town of the city, all the way down to Holyrood Park and Arthur's Seat, essentially kind of starting this 3 days worth of celebrations. A really popular event, draws huge crowds from all over the world because people do come for New Year's Eve here in Scotland, mainly for the big street party that's going to take place on Wednesday night. 100,000 people expected to cram into Princes Street behind me. You can still see the Christmas market still firing on full cylinders there, along with the various fairground rides. But ultimately, this is a real massive draw for the city of Edinburgh. Hundreds of thousands of people come to the city just to experience this New Year's event. Of course, there are others around Europe, but few really come close to this kind of quite magical time of year. And certainly, of course, that doesn't stop in 25. Over in 2026, we get the Looney Duke as well, where thousands of people go and take a frosty dip to bring in the new year in a very refreshing style. Lots to look forward to up here in Edinburgh.
much. Tony Maguire live for us in Edinburgh ahead of those celebrations. That'll be making for great viewing on New Year's Eve. Tony's getting the day off, I think, which is good, because he's been working on that day plenty of times. You will be here, won't you?
And we'll be back tomorrow.
Yes,
but
indeed.
This is it from Britain's Newsroom for today. And up next, we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Catherine and Dawn. See you tomorrow.
Thank you very much, you two. We've got a cracking show for you, including asking the very important question, with 100 Brits held in foreign countries, what is so special about that Egyptian that we've just let in, despite all the horrible things he said?
Yes, that row really rumbling on, isn't it? Also, if you're thinking about heading off somewhere hot, it could be that business rates at airports might be sending ticket prices up. And also, some pretty shocking figures saying that foreign nationals become entitled to claim benefits here in Britain every 43 seconds.
Don't want to miss it. See you soon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Another cloudy day to come. Still got that chilly feel as well, but there is more in the way of sunshine to come for northern areas through this afternoon as well as into Tuesday. That's because this cold front is pushing down from the north. It won't introduce much rain at all, but it will bring clearer air with it, and that will introduce some sunshine for parts of Scotland and some northern areas of England into this afternoon. We'll still see some sunshine across western areas of Wales, southwestern England as well, but if further inland and across many eastern coasts, we will see some pretty grey skies through much of today, a risk of some showery rain as well as across eastern coasts. Still a cold feel as well, temperatures in the low single figures, feeling a little bit colder than that with the strength of the northerly breeze. Now that northerly breeze will push some showers further inland into this evening, but across much of Scotland it should remain dry. Clearer skies developing for much of western areas